your waistband pinned and ironed to the length that I was mentioning in the previous video, okay? So with your 2 pins, I'm gonna start at the back area because this is where I want my gap. Remember, we need a gap, an opening, for whenever we insert the elastic in the next step. So whenever you're sewing, I'm gonna start right here at this first pin, and I'm gonna sew right along this folded edge all the way around the PJ shorts, and then I'm gonna stop at this pin. So again, we have a gap right here. So whenever you're talking about seam allowance, you don't really have a seam allowance right here, but you're just making sure you're following that line. So I'm gonna get as close to the edge as I can, that fold right there, put my presser or my needle down. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning, and then I'm just gonna go forward. And so again, I'm only sewing one side. I have the back side of my shorts or the front side of my shorts are over here, okay? So make sure you're not sewing your waistband shut. So take out my next pin. So I'm approaching a seam allowance, and remember my seam allowances needed to be pressed open and lay flat. So make sure before you sew over it that it's all nice and flat. Okay. So again, as I'm doing this, I'm just moving my fabric. Move that pin. I'm making sure I'm staying right along that edge the entire time. And if you see your fabric kind of moving, make sure you're adjusting, okay? So take that pin out. But take your time with this step. I'm approaching my front seam allowances. So I'm gonna sew over that. Again, make sure it's nice and flat. That pin. Remove my next pin, and I'm almost back to where I started. So again, make sure everything's laying nice and flat. So this is the pin where I needed to stop. So I'm gonna go to it, take that out, and then I'm just gonna back stitch right at that. Okay. So again, turn my threads too. Again, we should have an opening right in the elastic. This is the only opening right here. Everything else needs to be sewn right along the edge. Okay, and then you're on the next step now.